So Flossbar is this idea that you put on a piece of paper. It has 19 other ideas. Flossbar ends up at the top of your list. Walk me through what it took from writing it on that piece of paper until you actually launched Flossbar.
So people who have been tracking the story a little bit are probably confused with how we ended up doing what we ended up doing, because we've changed like 4 times what we actually do. So what was the original idea of Flossbar? Like, what was on that, Excel sheet of different ideas? It was actually that same spare capacity concept as the lovely idea of Bagalicious at the time, which is, what's spare capacity in dental? Well, dentists leave their offices at, roughly 5:30, 6 o'clock. And there's lots of people who want appointments after work or before work, but we were targeting after work. So our first model was actually, how can we stick hygienists into dental offices in their evening and weekend to be able to run pop-up services for the most common parts of what patients are looking for, which are cleaning, x-rays, and whitening.
Got it. So that was phase 1. So did you actually end up launching that, or did that never get off the ground, that portion of it?
So we ended up launching that. And we saw a couple hundred patients, and so it was in pilot phase. But what we were learning about that is that the one is we were fighting for New York City costs of customer acquisition. I mean, in dental, it's like $180 to secure a patient. So even though we had a cool brand and a millennial brand and all this stuff, I mean, we're able to get it down to $90 cost of customer acquisition. But then when you looked at, where we were pricing cleanings to be affordable and all of that stuff, the economics were, when you fully bake them, were putting us in the negative. And I wasn't a direct to customer marketing specialist. That wasn't my forte. And I couldn't really afford any of those people yet. So we just kind of went to phase 2.
Mm-hmm. And so what did that look like? What was the difference between phase 1 and phase 2?
So phase 2 used the concept of pop-ups yet again. That kind of mobile overlaying upon something. However, rather than targeting dental offices and using their spare capacity, we targeted employers and their spare conference room capacity.
That is awesome. So now you're using their capacity. You're not setting up maybe away from where the patients are at. You're going directly to the patients. So you said your cost per acquisition, 180. Then I saw you kind of probably learned some things, got it down to, in the below 100. What did that do to your cost per acquisition when you actually went directly to the patients and set up in the office?
So it's interesting to calculate, but I'll calculate it straight from when you get the HR person to agree that you will come in and you will be their mobile dentistry provider. After that, I mean, we were spending at co-working places, because that was actually our first mobile experience was at WeWork, co-working spaces. So our cost of customer acquisition was about $7.
That is which is like unheard of in the dental space, right? So as a marketer, I'm just like, that's almost free, right? Like it's getting down there towards the free range. So that is amazing. And again, goes back to the entrepreneur brain and how you're working through these problems and how you're like, okay, well, that's too expensive. That doesn't work. Where a lot of people would have said, let's try a different idea. You figured out a way to get that cost down. So now you're down at $7. And was there a next phase? Was there a phase 3 to Flossbar before you moved into Medbar?
Yeah, we have 4 phases. It's very exciting.
So what happened with phase? So what happened in phase 3? What was the difference between phase 2 and phase 3?
Okay, so in phase 2, we learned we could get down to $7 at a co-working space. And then if we went to employers, which have a central influencer, it's one company, we could get down to like $2.50. So that was really good. And then it was all about how can you maximize the day? Like, you're already there, your costs are high. Great, it costs you $2.50 to $2.50 to get a patient through, but you're only getting like 10% of the population. They're not all piling on for dental appointments. And so you keep having to sell to bigger and bigger employers, which have slower and slower sales
Mm-hmm.
cycles.
Yeah.
And so an interesting thing we found is that vision and hearing services can actually be done by technicians that
Mm.
learn the vision and hearing service equipment and are remotely supervised by an optometrist and an audiologist.
Oh, okay. So it's similar to like the way X-ray have developed, right? And the way that kind of industry is moving as well, where you can have, and correct me if I'm misunderstanding you, you can
Mm-hmm.
have somebody there running the equipment that gets a certificate of some sort, as long as they're being overseen, but that person overseeing them is not actually in the building. They can be somewhere else. That is so cool. So that was phase three. So now you have your $2, $3 cost per acquisition on the dental side. And now you're adding in vision and hearing on top of that. And you're starting to walk through that.
Yes, exactly. We found that we're only getting about 10% of the population into dental appointments, even though it didn't cost us much for kind of maxing out, sometimes 20%. But once you add on different services to a dental appointment that are interdisciplinary, we actually saw immediately a 15% boost in appointment
Mm,
volumes, that our percentage of population, where we were getting about 25% of the population into the chair.
wow.
And that was an
Okay. So then,
interesting psychological, like, marketing phenomenon, because on one hand they're getting more value. It makes economic sense for the employee. If they don't have to go get 3 appointments, now they're right here. But it also makes you more legit at the employer. Like, you're not fly by night, they're one service, one hit wonder. You're actually their provider across three service lines, and it's a trust sale. So by doing all of it, we were like more established and more trusted, was actually the feedback we were receiving.